People awaken in different phases. No pun intended. Well, maybe so. And at different paces. We are all seeking the truth. Well, other than the idiots who just come here to harass, of course, which you'll see in comments often, but theirs will be eternal damnation. So, sorry. However, we recently reviewed a video from another channel that we've watched from time to time, whom we love very much. No one would expect that we would agree on everything, and we certainly don't. That's okay. However, we listened as he really struggled through this idea. And the next two videos, this video and the next video, we're gonna cover this because we want to clarify so that, especially if he's watching these, here you go. Here's the scriptures that show that you really should look at this differently. The idea that the sun is the measure for days, weeks, months, and years—it's a little foreign to him because he's been steeped in Messianic Judaism, and he's come out of that, and he's awakening. And we get it. Look, we're all at different places. But even according to the Sefer Jubilees and Enoch, it says that. So one cannot then use the Sefer to say the opposite, especially with passages where it disagrees with itself. That's their conflict and their problem, not ours. But we are going to deal with that head on in this video and the next, especially in the next one. We're really going to go straight to the Sefer and show you the passages and draw the distinction and show you what R.H. Charles said and why he did what he did and why it's accurate to translate it the way that he did and how their way is the inaccurate way. We will straighten this out. And we've already proven this concept, though, in the previous videos, parts 40 through now it will be part probably 45 in Answers in First Enoch. We dealt with this before in the Sabbath series in great detail. Parts A through G, Answers in Sabbath, parts 1 and 2, or you could just go to the series, When Does the Day Begin? All these videos appear there. You can watch them pretty much in order that we put them out. Now, we covered this all very well also in print in Rest, the Case for Sabbath, available free in ebook at restsabbath.org. Check it out. In other words, folks, we aren't just making a claim here. We're not just saying something to say it. We're proving it, and we have proven it. However, in this video, we're going to address, very specifically, the 13th month of Judaism. Is it real? Do we find that to be scriptural? Does Enoch remotely allude to it? Where does it originate? And why is it named for a false god? Yet again? From Judaism? Who is their god? That's the question. Also, someone attempted multiple times to ridicule Enoch, saying, "What about eclipses? What about eclipses? What about eclipses?" Over and over and over and over. Hey, guess what? We're going to tell you about eclipses. They thought they were throwing wrenches in the works. That's a gotcha. See, we gotcha. That's laughable because Enoch is far smarter than they. Yes, he accounts for eclipses very well, and we're going to show you in this video how. Let's get started. Now let's deal with this one first, and in the next we'll address, much more of another channel's sort of response to our findings, which remain untarnished, really. He doesn't even touch them. Is there a 13th month on the Bible calendar? Well, he says there is still, yet he doesn't produce one single scripture that actually says so. He tries to manipulate Ezekiel, which is a timeline from a writing thousands of years ago, over 8 chapters. You want to talk about ludicrous. When we've gone through and we've found hundreds of scriptures which show you that the day begins at sunrise. Again, you have to watch, when does the day begin? We'll cover it all there, all the detail. Have you heard this? In Judaism, because it follows the moon in error, that's what drives their calendar, it has to then reconcile with a leap month every few years. Well, and they're confused about that. Some say every 2 to 3 years. Well, that would be wrong, just outright wrong to the biblical calendar and to what Enoch says. It would have to be just every 3 years. That would be the only accurate way to look at that. But their calendar is wrong to the Bible as well as the Roman one, and just a monstrosity to confuse everyone. Really, just throw it out. It's useless. Totally. Now, you will never find the supposed 13th month in Scripture. How can I say that? Well, go look for it. You won't find it even once. And that guy had to stretch 8 chapters to try to make it work. And, such minor math discrepancies in writings that are thousands of years old do not especially hold water, especially in the face of all of the absolute 100% direct references that the sun is the measure for days, weeks, months, and years. And we've shown you so many at this point. That one reference says nothing. And it certainly doesn't prove that there's ever a 13th month. In fact, even when what he's saying, it doesn't prove a 13th month. It's a 17-day discrepancy, not 30. Illiterate. So not once, but let's vet this more. Now, because this is a YouTube video, we're going to use this site's verbiage because it's concise and in a paragraph form, basically. But we also came through the Messianic Judaism circles, and we left them. This most certainly is typical of their belief. He represents it fairly well, even though it's error. This is for Adar 2, so the 13th month specifically. Who? Well, what's that name? Oh, we'll get to that, Adar. Yeah, you're going to not like that. The Hebrew leap year, the Hebrew calendar, is based on a lunar month. Well, no, it's not. Not in the Bible, not in 1st Enoch, not in Jubilees, not from the temple priests, the actual keepers of Scripture, in all of Scripture, ordained by Moses. So that's a lie, but okay, let's continue. And has just 354 days in the year. No, it doesn't. It has 364. That's a lie. It's 10 days too short, and you have the wrong calendar. There you go. Scripture never reflects 354 days, ever. Versus the Gregorian calendar, by the way, which has 365, and again requires a leap year or really day. It's 365.25, really, but no matter. An extra month is added to the end of the Hebrew calendar every 2 to 3 years. No, it's not. It should be every 3 years, or it isn't going to fit. So you've even screwed that up. But anyway, in order to keep the beginning of the year on Nisan 1. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. As commanded in Exodus 12:2. Well, yeah, the first of the year is commanded in Exodus 12:2, but that's all. Not a leap month. Exodus 12:2, we'll show you next, doesn't say there's a leap month. It doesn't say there's 13 months. That's not in Scripture. Only that Abib 1, never Nisan, by the way. It's Abib. That's the Bible name for that month. They're using the Babylonian one, which tells you what calendar they're on. But that is the first day of the year, indisputably. Now, what happens first? Well, the sun rises and starts that day, month, and year. Whoops. So it's not a lunar calendar. It's a solar calendar. How do we determine what day Nisan, no, it's Abib, that's Babylonian, will begin? Nisan begins when the sliver of the new moon, no, it's supposed to be month, not new moon, read the Hebrew, can be sighted after the barley becomes ripe for harvesting in Israel. Folks, that is stupid doctrine of idiots who think barley drives the calendar. Dumb. I mean, how dumb can one be? The barley harvest is impertinent to calendar days. It follows the calendar, not the other way around, and it has no impact whatsoever. If it did, we are in massive chaos because it changes many times year to year. This is how some in Israel are claiming there's a new Abib 1. Why do you think the barley harvest comes in sooner? Because your calendar is wrong. That's why. It's amazing. So basically, it's lunacy. They skip days, and it's not a calendar. It's an occult doctrine. It's nonsense. If the barley will not be ripe enough to make a wave offering at the Feast of First Fruits, well, that's wrong, because there's never a scripture that says to move first fruits to another date. It's a fixed date in Scripture. as commanded in Leviticus 23. Oh, he makes it sound like Leviticus is saying that this dynamic exists. It doesn't. It's a lie. Notice he's just using basic scriptures, really. It tells you of first fruits there. That's it. It doesn't say to add a month or whatever in order to justify when the barley harvest comes in. That's stupid. It's just not there. Then Nisan, no Abib, that's the scriptural first month of the year, is put off a month. No, it's not. That's never found in any scripture, and he doesn't give you one because he can't. And a second month of Adar is added. That's Adar 2. These are idiots. It's a clown circus for trying to justify a false calendar that's never worked and never will. They can't be serious, can they? Oh, they are. It's called Pharisee leaven. They changed the calendar as the beast system would. Prophesied by Daniel. Adding a leap year, leaven, ensures that both of these commandments are kept. But see, the lack of faith in Yahuwah is what you're seeing here, and the lack of belief of Scripture. They don't believe the Bible, and this certainly doesn't represent the Bible, because not a single Scripture ever says to add a 13th month, nor to reconcile the moon with the sun, which is just nonsensical. And that we continue to keep in season with Jehovah's, well, that's a wrong name, not even Hebrew, there's no V in ancient Hebrew, and it's Yahuwah's timing. Would he not be smarter than this, you would think? I mean, of course he would. Let's just be blunt. Yahuwah set forth a complex yet simple calendar, very easy to follow, and the measure is the sun. Yes, we are generally all off track as the world has changed his calendar. And these kinds of idiot Pharisees stand in the way to obstruct it, trying to justify their circus act that never works. Don't ever fall for this one. Again, here are the two scriptures that he quotes, and they have nothing to do with Adar. Oh, who's that? You'll see. Disgusting. Nothing to do with adding a month and or even a day of trying to adjust the calendar. That's illiterate. It's made up fiction. It's never in the Bible. First fruits is Abib 26 every year on the Hebrew calendar. Period. Year in and year out. That says that in Jubilees, and it's right there on the calendars we found in Qumran. So it's indisputable fact. Shavuot is anchored to it exactly 50 days later. No, you don't count that every year. And the barley harvest has nothing to do with it. These are fixed dates. That's fixed in the third month. They call Sivan, but it's just the third month, on the 15th of the month. Jubilees nails that, gives you the exact date of both. You can't move these. Certainly barley does not. That's nonsense. They cannot be altered. Yes, we have to reconcile this with the Roman calendar today, every year, but the Hebrew dates never actually change. But where does this Adar come from? I mean, the Bible only ever uses the 12th month for the name of this month, never Adar, not true scripture or not in the proper context, and we'll show you. Not as Hebrew months go, and there is never an Adar 2, especially a second month, the 13th month. It's not there. So why would you add it? And why would you placate it and try to defend something that's not Scripture? The Bible calendar is perfect, exact, precise. That's what Enoch says, based on the sun, not the moon, which would not be either of those adjectives. It just wouldn't work. Now, one other channel, again, tried to use the first 8 or so scriptures, 8 or so chapters of Ezekiel, where the prophet is to lay on aside for 430 days. They conclude that either Ezekiel only laid on aside 413 days, or it must have been a different calendar. Well, first of all, that's a false paradigm, because those are not the only two options of that passage. That's ridiculous. Have we really not seen other similar discrepancies in dates in these writings from thousands of years ago? We know that Pharisees have manipulated, and in this way to bend it to their, I mean, are you kidding? Really? So they try to exploit one, and only one, of course. And he spends a lot of time on it, trying to go through, again, 8 chapters. We're not even going to do that because it's a ridiculous notion. We've caught them even altering lineages in Genesis, Pharisees, as they deleted one found in Luke, Jubilees, the Septuagint, and the Samaritan Pentateuch. All have it, but not the modern Genesis. They took it out. They removed it from there and Chronicles. So they're altering the ages of some of the patriarchs by 100 years. Why? Because we want to mess up the calendar. That's what they want to do. They've been doing it even over time. So shouldn't be a surprise. They're Pharisees, and their Talmud says that that is their aim. They're supposed to do that, and yet some listen to them. In this case, the problem is that 17-day difference, that's not 30 days, doesn't even fit the lunar calendar either. So still, the rabbis are wrong. So then that channel attempts a luni-solar calendar, trying to manipulate and stretch it further, and the reality is it's simply straining gnats in an extreme stretch. I mean, really extreme stretch. You've seen so many passages now that define the sun as this measure, the only measure, sun charts from Enoch, definitive laws from Jubilees with the sun as the measure, not the moon, as well as an outright rebuke of those justifying the moon, just as this guy is doing. Sorry, but you better read Jubilees again. Yet still, his moon fails. It just does. And he doesn't understand Ezekiel either. He's trying to stretch it. Why would you do that? We aren't covering the 8 chapters in this video. There's no use to, because we've already overwhelmed this with a massive abundance of Scripture. Genesis always has defined the day on day 1 and day 4 of creation as beginning at sunrise, not with the moon. Scripture agrees in whole, especially the Gospels and the death and resurrection of Messiah. We cover that in detail. Watch When Does the Day Begin? The first 3 videos go right for that. And it again never mentions a 13th month either. There is a 12th month mentioned several times in Scripture, but in all of Scripture, never a 13th period. Never added days, weeks, months, years, period. It's not there. And Ezekiel doesn't mention it either, and to claim that he did is false. Welcome to Babylon. Remember in 2 Kings 17, where the replacements of the lost tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel came into the land when Israel, the northern kingdom, was taken into Assyria. Now Judea stayed, and they had been separated for some time at that point. They infused the worship of their gods, which is why Samaritans in Scripture are not considered good people. Understand that. And they are not Israelites, although they claim to be. But the worship of their gods basically into Yahuwah's mindset, yet those are Persian gods, Median gods, Babylonian gods. He's always rejected that. Now today we call that modern Judaism, rabbinic Judaism. These are the Hasmoneans and Pharisees. They are the modern Jews. Understand that. We proved that out over several videos. You can watch, origin of the word Jew. You can watch Psalm 83 War, Gog of Magog. The answers in 2nd Esdras series. We do it throughout. According to the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, this is Adramelech or Melech or Molech, which is who? Baal. That's what the Samaritans, who had the doctrine not to pronounce the name of this god, they just called him by his title, which is Baal, which means Lord. Oh, wait a minute. They still did that with the Bible, replacing it 6,800 times. They replaced the name Yahuwah, YHWH, with the Lord, or take it back to the Hebrew, Baal. Oh, how nice. They're continuing their same doctrine to this day, the same Samaritans in that same practice. Oh, did you know that this Molech or Baal in title has another name in Assyria and Palestine, Israel? Yep. You guessed it. It means Adar. Oops, is prince or king. A false god rebuked in 2 Kings, but inserted into the Jewish calendar. Rebuked throughout Scripture, yet the Jews use this stupid name for their 12th month, which is the dumbest practice we could ever imagine. Notice, too, it means Anu is prince or king, like Enoch, who fathered the Nephilim, Scripture says. The Anunnaki, yeah, same guys. Now, we do find the usage of Adar as a pagan month. It's there. It's there one time in all of Scripture, once, and you see it in the book of Esther, which is not Scripture. But let's go to those and let's see. Here it is, in the whole of Scripture. Ezra the prophet rightfully uses this, but in the right context, not in the context of biblical Hebrew months. Now, this is Scripture. Ezra certainly is. He uses it one time in relation to Darius, the king of Persia, as it is a Persian month, not Hebrew, and appropriate to use in such perspective. It never was a Hebrew month. It says it's the year of Darius the king, basically, and that's his month, not the Bible's. Appropriate. It's nowhere else except in the fraud Esther. Now, we test that in testing the book of Esther. Watch it. It fails miserably. Even Martin Luther knew this. He knew that book was an occult tale. That's what he says. We give you his words too, so go watch it and you'll see. Esther mentions it several times, yet always in the context still of Persia, where she supposedly lived, if her story were even true. Let's be clear, it's not. The whole book is a lie. So Adar, the false god, another name for Baal, Adramelech, Melech, Molech, that's his actual name, Baal the title. Also a god of Persian origin, or that area generally, who was infused into their Samaritan doctrine, their Samaritan religion, which if you follow it through is now called rabbinic Judaism today, because it was Phariseeism brought from Samaria when they attacked and conquered the temple, usurped the priesthood, replacing the sons of Zadok, who they exiled to Qumran. We've covered that in Who Defiled the Temple. And they still maintain this doctrine, calling Yahuwah Baal, essentially, or at least treating him is in the same manner, trying to hide his name, just as they always have with their god Baal. Illiterate. Now, what about lunar eclipses? Does Enoch account for these? Another topic. Again, we could spend an entire video, really a series, maybe, or at least several videos on this topic. You're talking, very detailed scientific analysis would need to be done. We are not going to do that in this video, but we'll do a little, and it'll be enough to make the point. So there you go. This is Answers in First Enoch. It's 52 videos, and we just aren't going to go for 10 hours in this particular one. The funny thing is, we had only covered the sun up until this video, so really no reason to even get into lunar eclipses yet, but of course it's being used as ridicule, yet the person trying to use it doesn't even realize how dumb they are to bring it up, because, well, Enoch covers this. So not even a point, yet again, from a stupid blogger who doesn't know anything. Now we'll cover this a little. Let's see. Back to First Enoch, chapter 74, the course of the moon is where we are here. Verse 5. In 2 months, the moon sets with the sun in those 2 middle portals, the 3rd and the 4th. She goes forth for 7 days and turns about. What's that? Turns around in the other direction. Wow. Again, that's her course, and it is beautiful. It is a wonderful course, but You can see how this would account for eclipses generally, because now there will be an overlapping throughout this 2 months at certain points. Only from certain areas would you see that, certain regions of the earth. And returns again through the portal where the sun rises and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes, that's another change, from the sun. So slows down, pulls away from, okay? Again, they are moving in different directions. This explains the setting for eclipses to occur. There you go. Eclipses are only seen in certain areas of the world at once. And generally, they occur 2 to 5 times a year. But what's funny is even that cycle matches, and we'll show you. And in 8 days enters the 6th portal. So we're all over the place here, from which the sun goes forth. So these are the sun portals that the moon's going through, but it's got a little more erratic course, and it even changes directions. No doubt the moon is not the sun, and it does not need to be. Don't try to make it the sun. Because of this turning back, and of course it recedes later from the sun, the moon is clearly on a different course, and the opportunity for eclipses occurs. There you go. So yes, Enoch does define the mechanism. Now we're going to go into this a little more. We can test this, at least some. In addition to eclipses, we have all seen there are times of the year where the moon is visible in the daytime, very oddly. And many have observed that. I don't know if you have, but check it out. And so why is that? Because that can't happen on the tilted sphere that we see today. Modern scientism fails in this regard. Yet Enoch's version explains this paradigm and accounts for it. The 2 months Enoch appears to be identifying here by the portals that he discusses. Here are those in which the sun goes through, the 3rd portal, and then the 4th portal. Now, he gives you an order there, so you can see the time of year based on that order. This makes this easy to identify, really. That is the 12th month, Hebrew month, never called Adar. For the 3rd, not in Hebrew anyway, for the 3rd portal. That's when it's going through there, and then the 4th. So then the 1st month of the year, Abib, it goes through the 4th, and there's that progression. That's the order given by Enoch, and those are the 2 months being identified. So basically the time frame is February to April, essentially. That is when the calendar lines up, because the moon, again, falls behind 10 days, right? So eventually it comes back to matching exactly what Enoch defines at the time that he observed this. So understand that. If you try to apply it another way, it won't make any sense. Now, we're also going to cover this. You'll see scientifically over the next 10 years, this actually fits the cycle. Over the first, I think, almost 5 years, we'll see exactly in a second. And then over the 10, you can see how the moon, because of the moon, the eclipses fall behind, and they fall behind, and they fall behind. You can see it very clearly over 10 years here, you'll see. And then back to first Enoch 74 again, where there's another such period, another time of year, which actually you're going to see fits science. Verse 7, and when the sun goes forth from the 4th portal, she, the moon, goes forth 7 days until she goes forth from the 5th and turns back again. Now that's her, not the sun doing that, understand. So that's not the sun's course. And we're not going to apply the sun's course. We'll show you why we apply what we apply and how we arrive. And turns back again in 7 days into the 4th portal. So the moon's going, coming, it turns back. Let's see. Accomplishes all her light, and she recedes and enters into the first portal in 8 days. Okay, so, and she returns again in 7 days into the fourth portal. So you have 7 days, you have another 7 days, that's 2 weeks. You then have 8 days, okay, so now you're at 22 days, and then you have another 7 days, that's 29 days, which, by the way, is a moon month, and it's not a sun month in that regard. And it's the moon doing all the movement here. This is a moon description. The sun's just doing its thing, right, which is consistent, which is why it's the measure. This movement of the moon is very hard to chart, and we're not going to do it, but it's not necessary in order to understand. Once again, the opportunity for eclipses arises as the moon turns back and recedes behind the sun. This would cause an eclipse in a certain area of the world at certain times of certain moments. Both lunar and solar eclipses are explained by this dynamic, as the moon could be in front at some times and the sun could be in front at some times from a certain perspective. Remember, they are the same size, according to Enoch. We'll show you those scriptures in a second. Well, in a few minutes. Another time, the sun in front of the moon. So in both cases, you got an eclipse. If the perspective catches them in the same exact position at that moment, which is what would have to happen, it's what we call a full eclipse, right? Or otherwise, it's partial. Pretty easy to understand. Eclipses do not debunk Enoch. Actually, they debunk modern scientism, who actually has a very poor explanation for this dynamic. Enoch accounts for them, and very well, and very scientifically. And what time of year did Enoch describe by the gates that he mentioned for this portion? Well, this is clearly a different time of the year from the previous. Okay, it needs to be, yet it invokes the fourth portal. Now, it's a month in total, basically, but to be consistent, let's consider the range of 2 months consistent with the other. The moon goes through the fifth portal, but it doesn't say that the sun does. So we're using the sun charts here as the measure, not the moon. So it doesn't say the sun goes through the fifth. In fact, it's specifying that the moon's doing something different because the sun's still going through the fourth at that time. So this is the fall season at the time of Enoch's description, as it must be, because he's not repeating himself here. And the other reference is super clear to the spring feast season especially. Remember, the moon falls behind and continues for at least 8 years. We know that because that's what Enoch says. He does the math for us, and that's there even in the Sefer Bible. No leap month is recorded there whatsoever. So, and it doesn't need to. There's no need to reconcile the moon with the sun. Just don't do it. It doesn't need to match the sun's course. That's a false paradigm, and that's what happens when you set a false paradigm and then you try to make everything match the false paradigm. Forget that. Enough of that. Enoch doesn't match up the sun and moon, but says the opposite. They are two different measures for different purposes, and they're both beautiful, and they're both exact to what they're supposed to be. But the moon is not exact to the sun's purpose. And why would you try to make it be? So this is the 6th Hebrew month of the 7th Hebrew month, basically Ethanim, which is the fall feast. So you're seeing really the spring feast, fall feast season, shoulder of it roughly. Again, these are all rough, and they don't need to be exact. The previous invokes the spring feast months, this one the fall, which makes sense. That's biblical precedence. Basically, we see this as August through October, which also fits science. Now let's look at a chart of eclipses and when they occur, and this is fascinating. This is from timeanddate.com. We're not saying they're perfect. We don't know, but this is a measure in which we can test. First, we'll look at what happens to be a match in time right now in the basically period of the next 5 years or so, where these eclipses actually match Enoch's description of the moon within the same time frame, meaning it's matching up to the period that he was addressing when he wrote it. But because the moon falls behind, it changes, right? So notice there are no reconciles to catch the moon up to the sun, nor should there be. Again, its course is perfect. It is meant to fall behind. That is a good thing. Let it do so. Don't mess with it and try to reconcile it and move it around, because he doesn't do that. In the 2 times of year where the moon turns back, and also we see that it recedes behind the sun, we have a match as basically between August to October was one of those periods. We find coming eclipses over the next 5 years, just as Enoch charted. Then in the other part of the year, in the 12th Hebrew month and the 1st Abib Hebrew month, there we go again. Over the next 5 years, these all occur in Enoch's time frame identified. That means we're matching up right now in this 5-year period. But remember, the moon gets behind. You can see it right here on screen. It's demonstrated. See the progression right here. In the red are the fall months. First, you're in late October. Then it goes to mid-October for the next one, to the beginning of October for the next one, to late September, to mid-August, to the beginning of August. You see that? It keeps falling behind, just as it's supposed to. Exactly as it should be, because the moon falls behind. And notice, and let it do so, because it's supposed to. And notice these are almost 10-day increments. Oh, that's interesting. Imagine that. Again, an eclipse is not seen everywhere, but in specific areas, and you can see how much that moves around even. And we're supposed to chart this? No, we aren't doing that. Let the other channel do that. Let's see your moon chart. Come on, let's see it. Because you covered both books and you didn't do a sun chart or a moon chart. So don't be criticizing us. Enoch explains this well enough already. This is the full 10 years of coming eclipses. Let's show you all of it. And this is so interesting because the first 11 over the first 5 years match up to Enoch's time period that he's discussing, and that's just because that happens to overlap there. But the moon keeps falling behind, and it even does during that period, we see. So now it moves in the second half, the second 5 years of the next 10 years. In the late summer, fall, from the basically August now to July to June to May. See how it skips there? Almost every other one. There are a couple together one here. About 10-day increments, though not exact. Again, different areas experience this as well, so it is far more complex indeed. And we're not going to get into that over many hours. We're just not. Then in the spring, we've gone from April, and then it goes back to February, right? What we saw in the first 5 years. Now, it goes from February to January, to December, to November. It keeps falling behind. That is exactly what Enoch describes and exactly what the moon is supposed to do, which drives this dynamic. It's what moves at a different course against the sun certain times of year, twice a year. It's not what modern scientism, ever truly explains. Yet Enoch does. Remember, the sun and moon are the same size. So in order for a full eclipse, they have to be directly aligned, and they would be physically, and they are at certain times. Enoch has always explained what we call eclipses today, both lunar and solar. Enoch does. Modern scientism fails. They do not. Why do so many continue to follow this occult system of religion in this calendar that is so easy to disprove and yet permeates even the church today because they're following Pharisee 11. The Pharisees followed the lunar calendar, provably even in the story of Joseph of Arimathea and Mary, where Mary was keeping the Sabbath, and at the same time, Joseph was out buying and selling, which he shouldn't be doing on the Sabbath, and he's in the Sanhedrin, so he definitely shouldn't be doing it. But what's he doing? He's following the Pharisee calendar, which begins at sunset, but Mary's following the one that started at sunrise. And it's so obvious, it's right there in the passage. In our first Sabbath video, we tell everyone that we practiced at that time what is the lunar Sabbath, beginning Friday at sundown, because we did. That's called genuine, and exactly what we did do back then. We don't change that video because it's accurate until we got to this and we tested it. So see, even we haven't been doing this for that long. But when you discover the truth, when you uncover it and test it and prove it out as we have, well, you change what your practice is based on the truth. Some likely, idiot blogger kept criticizing, why don't you take that video down? How dare you say? I mean, that's just stupidity. And we get that all the time. And we're going to mute stupidity like that. It is accurate and honest, and this is, our channel that proves things, right? Now we tested it, concluded the sun starts the day, and we changed our practice accordingly. It wasn't easy to come to that conclusion, but we got there, and then we tested it, and it was overwhelming, and no doubt that was the accurate way to view this. Those who do not understand such genuine ways in these days of increasing knowledge, well, simply will fall behind. It always felt strange to us, but we never knew why until we tested it and realized it was error. The entire Bible proves on a solar-driven calendar, and never the moon. The Synagogue of Satan, following their lunar calendar, disrupting the Bible calendar grossly, propagates this error, rebuked in Enoch and Jubilees. We see this in Genesis and affirmed throughout Scripture many, many times, which we cover. So, again, there's so much abundant Scripture there over many videos. Watch, when does the day begin? The Bible day begin. So some obscure view of Ezekiel's 8 or so chapters is not going to remotely overrule all of that Scripture. That's nonsense. Even though they reconcile with a 13th month never found in the whole of Scripture, also complete nonsense, and again, not accurate. It just doesn't work. It doesn't do it. It would have to be exact every year. 364 days, precise, exact, as Enoch says, yet the moon can never be because it's 10 days too short every year, period, and there is no leap month or reconcile for the moon ever mentioned in anything in Enoch, Jubilees, or the whole of Scripture. It just doesn't exist. They still give you the dates, but they're wrong for years at a time. And this is not by accident, of course, but they're also wrong in days, they're wrong in Sabbaths, they're wrong in feasts, they're wrong in all of it, because they don't find them accurately any given year, any given week, any given day. This is the paradigm in which we also were taught that the day in the Bible must be at sunset. Well, why? Well, because the Jews say so, and believe me, there is no other reason, because there's no Scripture that ever says so. However, what we are finding is that's always been error. And we know that offends some people, but don't get offended. If you've been operating in error, you're offending. You're offending Yahuwah. And we're pointing that out to you because we love you, and we'll continue to. First Enoch, Jubilees, Genesis, the Qumran scrolls all prove this to be error, especially the Gospels certainly do. The moon is not error, however. And scholars, it's beautiful. Don't try to blame that for your erroneous calendar, applying the moon in error for the wrong measure. You are the error, not the moon. It's not her fault. It's yours, Rabbi, wrong. Learn how to read. Again, moon, good. Those screwing up the Bible calendar by replacing the sun with the moon, bad. That's all. It's really time that we all awaken to this. Their deception has truly reached every facet of society in this age, we must sift through all of this trash to get to the truth. But we will. Next, we will address some of the scriptures covered on the other channel's video, where they attempt to reassert the moon, yet that argument already toast. And we're going to address the Sefer Bible directly, and their changing of First Enoch head on, or really the continuation of a false paradigm and false transposing of the word moon into the next sentence, which was never adequate and never accurate, and R.H. Charles caught it. Now, you don't want to miss this. We have almost 450 videos on this channel, one for every day of the year, many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, and now 6 in Spanish to start. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20-plus languages for most of our videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list as YouTube fails to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We now have alternative platforms for videos on Rumble, Odyssey, and Utreon, and our new podcast is also available for all of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, _space, original. If you prefer an alternative, we now have Parler and Gab. Links below. We have 6 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries, with a new release now available. The first book of Enoch, the oldest book in history, and we prove it right there in the introduction. Read it. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines Coffee Table Book in the US, Canada, UK, and many overseas markets on Amazon, and it's available in hardcover or softcover there. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, with color maps and interior, as so many had requested overseas. We already had that with color maps in the Philippines, but that too is available in hardcover or softcover, both in color or also in black and white, if you wish. All books, including Solomon's Treasure, are now free in eBook. Yes, folks, our content is free. And don't forget, the Book of Enoch, First Enoch, is also available in hardcover color, softcover color, and black and white color on Amazon. But in the Philippines, it's just black and white. That's all we can offer at this time. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming soon. Thank you for watching. Now, always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.